What is going on? Welcome back to the Optimistic Fan Club. I realize it has been a minute since we posted, since we've been live, since we've really done anything. We've been on a little bit of a summer break on the personal end of things, which people don't really care about, but I'll sprinkle it in here just for you. It's been very busy on the work front, which is a blessing, which is a good thing, but it's had to pull me away from this because this is not what pays the bills. However, we will be coming back in full force once the season starts. And at this point, this is going to be the final episode of the Optimistic Fan Club in this studio. A lot of changes coming, but we will be back come week one. So you're going to have to make it through training camp without us, the preseason, this, that, and the other. If you want to follow me on Twitter for my thoughts throughout all of this, be sure to do that. It is linked below. However, for this final video, we're going to do a little bit of a preview on the season and particularly how it relates to this Quinshon Judkins issue right now, because this is a serious thing. This is a very problematic situation for the Brands organization and for Quinshon Judkins in general. And I've seen a lot of takes, a lot of people in the comments who immediately jump to things like he's innocent until proven guilty, or the girl's lying, or on the flip side of things, throw him out of the league, cut him. It's very polarizing either way you look at it. And this is the reality of this situation. So if you're unaware at this point, I mean, if you follow the Browns, you already know about this. All the other channels have talked about this at some point since the news came out a couple weeks ago. Judkins gets into an altercation with his girlfriend, with a woman he's in a relationship with when they're coming back from the airport. And in this process, he allegedly punches her in the mouth with a closed fist and also hits her in the legs to the point where she has bruising on her body. And it was enough for the police in the court system to charge him with domestic battery, whatever the finite details of that are. They found that they had enough to go in there and arrest him and charge him for this. And now he's at the point where he wasn't at training camp when all the rookies were reporting. He was in court in Florida in handcuffs. And I mean, first off, we need to talk about this. Regardless of whether he's innocent or guilty of these things, it is clear that something happened to the point that the police were convinced enough to arrest him. So this whole thing of the woman is lying, he didn't do anything whatsoever, I don't think it's logical to just sit here and say absolutely nothing happened. She came up with this lie out of the woodwork, and it's just a big money grab extortion move, especially when Judkins hasn't even signed his rookie contract. He's not making any money at this point in terms of his career as an NFL running back. If this was a woman that he was actually in a relationship and you were just focusing on getting your bag, you know what the best thing to do would be? It would be to play the long game, not to cash in on a quick little menial lawsuit here or there and then walk out on it. It would be to marry someone, because then if you get divorced, you get half of everything they've ever made. Like, if we're going to play it out and be like, this is a money grab, then that's a poor money grab. That's a poorly thought out money grab. And I'm sure that there's a degree of a money grab going on in the sense that now there's going to be a lawsuit and he'll kind of be forced to settle, to do something to make this go away at some point. But with that being said, if he actually did put his hands on her, then she's entitled to some of that because there's pain and suffering involved. And if people are going to say, oh, it was just a couple bruises, it was just this or that, when your own body is violated by somebody else, regardless of the extent of that, you are owed something to some degree. And if we're going to play it out, if you have a sister, if you have a mother, if you have a woman in your life who you love, if another man, or just regardless, even if you didn't see anything, if they came to you and you trusted them and they said, this guy smacked me in the face, even if you just like lightly, like, bam, did something like that, you would be furious. You would tell them, go to the police, go do this. Let's make sure that this guy pays for what he did. Even if it was something that minute, you wouldn't be like, oh, well, it wasn't that bad and you're okay, right? Okay, we're going to move on. That's not the way reality works. But I think as fans, people often get sucked down into that position because at the end of the day, you want to see your guy on the field. You want to see the second round pick on the field. But it's not that simple because this is real life. And this is the other thing, the whole concept of he's innocent until proven guilty. Absolutely. He is innocent until proven guilty. But within the court of public opinion, absolutely not, because people can put the dots together and they can make a judgment call on a person. That you might be right or wrong, but people do this every day with everything constantly. We're constantly perceiving certain situations and making a decision based on our own personal history, our own experiences. And this is where we need to differentiate innocent until proven guilty. Yes, he is innocent until proven guilty within the context of the law of the land. Within being an American citizen, you are given those rights through birth when you're an American citizen. You get that ability, you get that graciousness to be innocent until proven guilty. That is not the case when it comes to the NFL. The NFL is a corporation, and their biggest concern is their public relations, how they are viewed, especially with a growing contingency of women watching the sport. They don't want the announcers to have to be, and Mike Florio was talking about this, so I'm not trying to pass this off as my own take. He's a former lawyer, and he made a really great point. You don't want the announcers to have to be sitting there saying, well, he's currently under investigation for domestic battery. Like, that is a really bad look. Imagine your little girl sitting there watching and she turns to you and goes, Dad, what's domestic battery? Like, they don't want to have to be explaining this to that contingency that they're trying to grow the game. So this is a PR move in terms of managing this. And they also, within the case of the Browns, they've been dealing with this, it seems, year in and year out, like ever since the Deshaun Watson stuff. Think about all the guys who get pulled over for stunt driving, all this stuff. And I mean, going back to the Shedeur Sanders issue of people publicly just casting him off, being like, he's just a goof, because he was driving 100 miles per hour. It's like, guys, now that we can compare these two together, can we just come to terms and agree that this is not as serious of a thing as it was? A guy driving late at night on an empty road in the outskirts of Cleveland in Ohio, driving fast on an empty road. It's like, it's really not that big of a deal. So hopefully we can put that thing to bed now. And Shedeur Sanders is doing a fantastic job carrying himself as a pro's pro. So is Carson Schwarzenegger. So is Mason Graham. So is Dylan Sampson, who's going to be stepping in and going to get the opportunity to seize this position because he has done everything right by keeping his name out of the news cycle. And we're going to talk about that more in a second. But just to wrap up on like the legality of all of this, regardless of whether he's innocent or guilty, yes, he has the right to be a free man until he is charged, until he's forced to pay some sort of settlement, anything like that. But within the context of the NFL, they don't owe him anything. He's an employee, and he's also an unsigned employee. So I think in terms of the Browns' approach to this, they did the right thing by saying, stay home, you need to deal with this. And like, this is very serious. This is not something that we wanted with this new cast of guys. This draft was really the ability to, this should have been their time to turn the page from all of the mess that the Deshaun Watson thing was. This was the chance for the Browns to announce a new stadium, to bring in a new crew of young guys who are going to be the cornerstones of this franchise for the next half decade. That's what this was supposed to be. And Judkins seemed like such a well-spoken, well thought out, respectful young man. And he's a young man. That's the thing we also have to keep within context here. What is he, 21 years old? And that doesn't give you the excuse. If he did put his hands on a woman, which it does seem there was some degree based on getting arrested. It's not just the word. It's like this woman had evidence of bruising on her body. It seemed like he was not that kind of guy, which is very, very disappointing. And it doesn't mean you cast him off and he's gone forever. I mean, Mike Hall had a situation similar last year, and he served his suspension and he comes back. And I think his career should be on the up and up. He should learn from this. Judkins is going to have the ability to learn from this, regardless of what ultimately happens. And I think he will be a Brown continually. But this is very disappointing in terms of the culture that you're trying to push. And when you see what you let walk out the door with Nick Chubb, and this is the other thing that we need to touch on, people being like, oh, we could have had Nick Chubb and instead we get this guy who's now a criminal. We got to be realistic about this too. Nick Chubb probably has, I think he's going to have a good season this year. And I think that he probably has like 2 more solid production years after that. But he's got a lot of injuries and he's getting up there in age. It's the sad truth of this all. So it's not like you traded a 1,600-yard rusher for a rookie who's now going to be suspended. That's not the case here. So we need to be realistic about all this. But what you did lose from a culture aspect, from being an ultimate pros pro, from being a pillar in the community, and just a model of respect and being a team player, like there is a trade-off within that. So that's the real thing in losing Chubb and bringing in Judkins. However, now let's talk about Dylan Sampson. This guy led the SEC in rushing. He wants to be the bell cow of this offense, regardless of his draft position. He didn't come in to be a third down back. He didn't come down to be a situational back. He wants to be the bell cow. He wants to be the guy toting the rock down the field all game, every single day. And now he has the chance to do that. So like, God willing that he stays healthy, that he doesn't take any backsliding, that he really shows up to be the guy who he was in college. He can go out there and solidify himself as the dude. And if the Browns can lean on that and show that, hey, when you do things the right way, when you go out there and you stay out of trouble off the field and you produce on the field, you are going to be rewarded. And you're not going to just be slotted back to that third running back spot or second running back spot once Judkins is back from his inevitable suspension. It's not going to be that. It's going to be, or it shouldn't be that. It should be, no, you are the running back one. You are getting at least half of these carries because you are going out there and you're doing it the right way. That is how you set an example of responsibility and production and doing things the right way should be rewarded. That should be the culture. And, you know, I think this is obviously the last place the Browns wanted to be in. And a lot of people are freaking out about Andrew Berry being like, this guy's character check backgrounds are unbelievable. Like, how could we do this? He needs to be fired. Stop looking at the past with rose-colored glasses. Guys, John Dorsey was the king of overlooking off-field issues. Like, look at Antonio Callaway. I think ultimately, just to put a bow on that kind of loose rant there, is that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, I think, are doing as good of a job as possible. And I think based on what they saw, they didn't get that indication that Judkins was that type of guy. I think that this is shocking to everyone. I think it's probably shocking to Ryan Day, to Judkins' parents, to his teammates in the locker room, to his quarterback, Will Howard. Like, I don't think that this is a thing that they were planning on. I think it's a bad situation. Who knows to what extent and how serious it really was. Regardless, there was a clear enough indication that he did something physical, which he shouldn't have. This is a kindergarten lesson. Keep your hands to yourself. Like, guys, this should not be up for debate. Keep your hands to yourself, and especially when it comes to women, regardless of what it is. There's the severity in it should be irrelevant at this point. If the intent and the context of it was within an argument and this and that, you keep your hands to yourself. And if there's anyone young listening, do not idolize or look up to people who do that thing. If you saw that around you growing up, find a way to break out of it and never fall into that trap, because it is a money trap. It is a trap against how you will be perceived by the world. And I think that that's the saddest thing within all of this, is that Quinshon Judkins will now regardless of what happens, will always be viewed as, when he goes to Pittsburgh, when he goes to Baltimore, when he goes to Cincy, when fans have ammunition to throw stones, they're going to throw the stones and they're going to say, oh, he's a woman beater. He's this, he's that, even if it's not true, because you did something and danced in an arena that led to this happening. So with all that said, Dylan Sampson, this is your chance to shine, to move up, make people forget about Judkins. And then Judkins, you got to build back from the foundation. You got to earn the trust of the community, of your teammates, of your coaches, of the organization, and the fans. And you can turn a page on this. You can learn to be better. And I think that on the flip side of all this, even with the Deshaun Watson stuff, with everything like that, it's like we just want to like bury people when these things happen. And sometimes that's justified when, sometimes that's justified. The punishment meets the crime in those instances. But the reality of what would be better for the world, for communities, for everything, is for people to learn from their mistakes and to become better people, and then influence the next generation to not make those same mistakes. Like, that is the most powerful way to create change, is by you changing and sharing those lived experiences and having other people not make those same mistakes and stumbles. So who knows how it'll ultimately play out. This is going to be a crazy training camp, though. And I think that this is a distraction that was the last thing that they wanted, but the Browns organization have handled it the right way by just saying, do not show up. We got bigger fish to fry. We don't need this culture problem. Get your shit figured out and then come back, face the music like a man, and then start actually living your life as a man at that point. A real man, not one who is able to be influenced emotionally and who snaps regardless. Like, you cannot give people any ammunition to tear you down, because the second you do, they are gone. And you could be gone too. There's a great quote I've been working on a big project outside of this, and it was very stressful. That's part of the reason why videos weren't popping out, because I was just completely consumed in this. And this is something that we'll share later on in the year once it all goes live. It's not really related to football, but just everything in life. It affects the Optimistic Fan Club at the end of the day. But there's a great quote that I saw, and it's, you are not your emotions, you are the awareness behind them. And that is what young men entering the NFL need to understand. Young men in college and high school, you need to understand that you have the power to make all the right decisions. You have the power to be absent in terms of emotionally reacting to the current situation that you're in. If you stand back, you view what's happening. Like in Judkins' case, if he found out his girl was cheating, if he found out something and it got him so angry, it's like you need the ability to pull yourself back, to stop your reaction, to throttle your emotions, and then find a way to work through it without giving people ammunition to tear you down and ruin your career. So it's self-inflicted, but he has the power to change. Everyone does. And I think that's what we can ultimately hope for. So going forward, getting off that topic, let's talk about the Browns quarterback room really quick, because this is, I think, going to be the main focus. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders. It does seem like the Shedeur Sanders hype has kind of tapered off a little bit, and I think that that's good. The post-draft boom was a little bit crazy, but now that it's actually getting down to the nitty-gritty, I think that this is how things are going to play out. I think Flacco is going to get semi-limited reps. This whole report that it's Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel, I think that they're going to let each other kind of go at it. And I think that Shedeur is going to be patiently waiting in the wings. The people who are going to be the loudest and most upset about it are going to be the fans, the CU aunties, all that, all the, the Shedeur mob who love him, justifiably so. You see what he was doing with the fires, bringing in food trucks and throwing the ball around with people in the community. Like, regardless, even if people are like, oh, it's just a PR stunt, it's like he's still giving his time. He's still doing great things. Like, that's the Lord's work right there, man. That's a great thing to do. He's a great example. That's a shining bright spot. They're not going to cut Shedeur Sanders. So anyone on that wavelength is just insane. They're going to let Pickett and Gabriel duke it out, I think, the first couple weeks. Then Pickett's going to get traded. And then it's going to be the battle where Gabriel and Shedeur will both start games at some point. And I think Shedeur Sanders will be the QB2 by week 1. And I think Flacco starts. I think it goes to week 7. And then I think Shedeur gets his chance against Miami in October, I believe October 19th. I've been saying this since he was drafted and since the schedule was released. And I really do believe that that is how it's going to play out. How successful it's all going to go, I really don't know. I think that this season is already showing that it's going to be unpredictable and it's going to be an extreme roll of the dice. And a lot is on the line. But it's going to be an exciting one nonetheless. So, intro song is already partway through. That means this is going to be a longer or a shorter exit than usual. But if you guys are enjoying, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we are live, because that's probably going to be the first time you see us again, man. We will be live week 1, Sunday night, going through all the good, the bad, the ugly, talking about the state of the Browns. Make sure you follow me on Twitter for kind of thoughts as training camp goes on, the preseason and whatnot. But say goodbye to the studio. This has been an unbelievable chapter of the Optimistic Fan Club, but it is time for change, and we will see you in September, baby.